U.S. President Donald Trump believes that he can still make the deal over Ukraine, a ceasefire deal, despite Russia's attack on Ukrainian infrastructure after the phone call between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Also, Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff said that he rejects the idea of sending British forces to Ukraine. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has ordered to create an Iron Dome over the United States and ready to invest in a new generation aircraft F-47. So what is known about Donald Trump's hopes for a ceasefire in Ukraine this year, and how does Donald Trump plan to defend the United States against air threats? So U.S. President Donald Trump still believes that he can end the war in Ukraine as soon as this year. According to Bloomberg, he believes that the full ceasefire deal could be reached before Easter, by the April 20th, and he believes in that despite the fact that Russian dictator Vladimir Putin still continues to attack Ukraine. So as we know, U.S. President Donald Trump spoke by phone with Russian dictator Vladimir Putin, and he agreed to a partial ceasefire deal in the air. Russian dictator Vladimir Putin agreed to this deal. However, several hours after this phone call, Russia has continued to attack Ukraine with missiles and drones. So Russian dictator Vladimir Putin violates this deal, and he continues his attack despite the previous arrangements with U.S. President Donald Trump and with Ukraine. But despite those incidents and despite this violation of ceasefire deal, Trump's team is still optimistic about the prospects of a ceasefire deal, about the perspectives of ceasefire as soon as this year. At the same time, European allies are concerned that Vladimir Putin is using this time of negotiations just to play out some time for further advances on the battlefield. According to Bloomberg, European allies are concerned by Vladimir Putin's and Trump's behavior because they are confident that Vladimir Putin is using this time of negotiations just to delay negotiations, to have more further gains on the ground, to move forward and to capture, to gain as much land as possible before he enters the real negotiations and before he signs any kind of a ceasefire deal with Ukraine and the United States. Moreover, it seems like Russian dictator Vladimir Putin is giving Donald Trump as enough as possible for Trump just to declare any kind of success in negotiations, but not enough to actually end this war. And this strategy is being used by Vladimir Putin to use this time of negotiations to give Trump as enough as possible, as much as possible for him, as much as he wants, just to use this time to capture even more Ukrainian land, because Vladimir Putin has rejected Trump's offer on a full ceasefire. He has agreed only to partial ceasefire in the air, not to attack energy infrastructure, but Vladimir Putin still violates even this deal, and it seems like Donald Trump's team doesn't have the ability to see what actually is going on in Ukraine, because Russia's attacks on Ukraine continues despite previous arrangement between Donald Trump's team and also between the team of Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. It is interesting that there are now negotiations in Saudi Arabia going on between American, Russian and Ukrainian delegation. It is still not known what is going on during these negotiations, but Trump's team would like also to extend the ceasefire to the sea and to have partial ceasefire in the air and at sea. However, there were previously some deals between Ukraine and Russia on the Black Sea grain export initiative. So even if there is a deal between Russia and the United States on ceasefire in the air, partial ceasefire on energy infrastructure and at sea, this would be a limited success, but not a full one. Vladimir Putin does not agree to a full ceasefire because he still would like to use his time to capture as much Ukrainian land as possible. He would like to have as much as he can before he enters real negotiations and before he sign up to a real peace treaty with Ukraine, to a full ceasefire. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff rejected British plan to send troops to Ukraine. As we know, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron has been preparing a plan to send troops to Ukraine to provide Ukraine with real security deterrent, with real security guarantees. However, Steve Witkoff has rejected this plan on this kind of security guarantees for Ukraine, because he thinks that it's not a serious plan, but on the other hand, this is one real security guarantee which Ukraine could obtain before signing any kind of security deal, ceasefire deal, and Ukraine will not enforce a ceasefire, will not agree to a ceasefire proposal without receiving bold security guarantees. But without American commitment to this mission seems to be less possible without American approval, because British Prime Minister and French President Macron and other allies are ready to send as much as 30,000 troops to Ukraine with air cover, with more than 120 fighter jets in the air. However, that really would need to have a US backstop to properly protect these troops from the air. They would really need to have US Air Force based in Romania and Poland, ready to act, ready to retaliate in case of Russia's attack on such European troops. That's why any security guarantee for Ukraine would be impossible without American commitment, without Trump changing his mind and really considering another approach to this matter, another serious approach to this matter, because without the American aid, without the US commitment, they would not be ready to provide any kind of strong security guarantees to Ukraine and ready to support this mission. And this would be used by Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. He would attack Ukraine again if there would not be any kind of European troops on the ground in Ukraine. That's why this would be really important for the US to change the course and to provide at least the US backstop for European troops ready to participate in such mission. And the United Kingdom is serious about that, because recently the iPaper reported that UK special forces have been put on high alert for the war in Ukraine. They're being prepared for deployment to Ukraine, and that's why the US should support this mission, because this is the one way out for Russian dictator Putin to end this war. It's really the last option to end this war and the last option to deter Russia from attacking Ukraine again in the future. And in the end of our conversation, we will cover recent news from the United States. US President Trump has ordered to create an Iron Dome over the US and will start production of American-made F-47 fighter jets. So Trump is really serious about the preparing more serious protection on the skies, in the air, over the United States. That's why he ordered to create an Iron Dome over the United States, according to CNN sources. But it will be really difficult for the US to protect all its skies, over all states of the America. That's why Donald Trump is working with this initiative to be ready to intercept any kind of ballistic cruise missile threats from the air. And also Donald Trump has ordered to produce the next generation fighter jets F-47. This plan has been suspended by the previous administration. However, Trump is serious about buying this plan, which would be produced by a Boeing company. And also he's serious about creating an Iron Dome. Still it is only idea to create this such a dome over the United States, because the US has a large territory. It would be difficult to protect all over the territory over the United States, but they're working on this idea seriously and will fund this idea as well as the next generation aircraft F-47. But stay with us on YouTube and we will cover the next news regarding negotiations over Ukraine and Trump's defense decisions in the Pentagon and in the United States. That's all for today. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, stay with us on YouTube, and glory to Ukraine.